Dumapit.
Dumapit. Is that a question or a statement?
Both.
Yeah. Am I looking here?
Story of your life. You're looking at me.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah. I mean, you can look there. Yeah. We could both just
They're
look there the whole
They're
time.
looking here though.
They're looking here. We're looking here.
And we're looking here.
They don't want to make eye contact. I think it's a presumption.
Right.
Right?
Okay, they don't.
When you're watching passive content,
Yeah.
isn't it weird to make eye contact with the person?
Like breaking the third wall.
Exactly. But breaking the third wall in podcast form is a weird look.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like a friend that's over there. You can't loop them in. Like you're just avoiding.
Did you say lube them in or loop them in?
I should. Yeah.
It's like a loop situation
porn.
I'm trying to sort out here.
So this is audition porn. Is what I'm getting. I asked you and you said not really. Like,
I said possibly, maybe there's a couch.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you did mention the couch. It's a nice couch.
So thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
I think so. I just wanted to kind of hang out, chat, shoot the shit, catch up. It's been a while. I think you're like what's really interesting to me is that you on a professional level, you have kind of been this like kind of the backbone of like Austin's best restaurants for like the past 10 years, and like not enough people know that. Like so many people's great meals have been made or curated in some way by you.
I mean, I wouldn't disagree.
I've
been very lucky to.
Well, you've made good choices.
Yeah, and I've been, not only have I feel like I've made good choices, but I've also linked up with people that were like-minded, like yourself.
Sure.
And just been lucky that way. Been like the old.
It's not luck. Those are choices. Like
yeah, so that you surround yourself with the people that you like really like and respect and want to work with professionally. If you want to be that guy, you gotta beat that guy. I don't know. To be my brother, you gotta beat my Kanye West.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to, you surround yourself in the company of good people, and I think I've worked really hard to do that.
Yeah.
At the very basic level, that's like my mantra is.
Is that one of your driving forces as far as how you make your career decisions?
For sure, 100%. And that's like one of the reasons I even am cooking, I think, is because some of the people that I respected the most at home in New Jersey were in this industry. It wasn't something initially that I thought would yield a career.
Sure.
And then it was kind of like a domino effect. Like every time I took a step further in, I got hooked in further, and I met somebody that really inspired me, starting with Uchi, and then going to Uchiko, and then just so on and so forth up until now. And even the people that I met back then that are still affecting my life now, like I try not to let go of that,
Totally.
Like I heard episode 1, one or two for me.
With Ramin, he was one.
He was one, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we had some fucked up audio on that one. It was like I was like super bummed about it, but it is what it is.
No, it was great listening to that though, because it definitely took me back to
those days.
Those days, yeah.
Yeah. It was a really interesting time.
Yeah, it was awesome. And I remember we had a talk years ago.
Yeah.
You were like, you can't. Something to the effect of like, you can't ever have that again. Because I was holding on for so long to like that restaurant,
that moment,
my
that
life
time.
in that restaurant, and like trying to recreate that with new people. And it wasn't anything like, it sounds like sad almost, but
I get it.
Yeah, it was just like, let me share this joy that we had. Let me share this with like the new class of people.
Totally. And
I would do that again and again, and then I looked at myself, and I'd been there for like 6 years, and I'm like, you sat me down, and you were like, it might be time to like,
it's time to go,
to do something different.
Yeah.
And like see the world and
totally.
Yeah, and since then I think it's been like a journey to figure out what the next thing was, and I think I'm in a good place now that I
think so too.
This is like maybe the first time in a long time I've felt like the perfect alchemy, so to speak,
great.
of
that's special. Like
being enriched by the work and being like genuinely like really liking the people and also respecting the people that I'm surrounded by all the time. So it's just a good vibes.
That's awesome.
And tortillas.
I mean, for me, it's a great guy.
Awesome.
And you guys generally have like a good group of people over there.
For sure.
Like you don't have, I mean, we both obviously work in a lot of kitchens, and I think you have these ebbs and flows of like, it's really hard, and very seldom doesn't occur when you have a lot of talent and not a lot of assholes.
Yeah.
Totally. They're I wouldn't say they're mutually exclusive, but they are close to being mutually exclusive.
100%.
and I mean, it seems like you guys have that there. I think the opening days at Emmer were like a case study in like too many egos. It was like, like every single person was like, I'm going to be the sous chef.
Yeah.
Except for the person that actually ended up being the sous chef, ironically enough.
Yeah, but I mean, that kind of environment does that. That's one thing, and this is another, and
Totally.
It takes a lot of.
Well, I mean, an environment is what you let it be.
Sure.
I mean, when you create something, you get to say what that environment is through the energy you put into it and the people that you allow into it, right?
Yeah,
those
100%.
two things are going to shape it.
Yeah.
And you guys have been. I think. I mean, that's always been like one of my greatest regards for Fermin is his ability to not let the moment dictate the mood. You know?
Yeah, and that's
He has this like overwhelming sense of like calm and positivity that is infectious.
I think he said it in his interview with you though, and I think that it's true. Like a lot of that he took from you, because seeing that that's who he is inherently, but seeing that you could carry that. You could
the weight of that restaurant that way.
Yeah, and you could be professional and you can be a leader, but still have that in your bag. I think that's something that we didn't, as young cooks, didn't realize. Like we thought maybe you had to be like this, like really intense kind of general all the time, but you were that, and you were also like.
Well, and I struggle with that too. I mean, I at that point was finding my voice that kitchen needed, right? Which was really interesting. I mean, I think that was, I think, my biggest test in situational leadership, in the sense that there was not one voice generally that was going to speak to the whole kitchen uniformly. It was very much I had to speak to individuals, and because there was not one approach that worked for everyone. There was an approach that worked with you, an approach that worked with Claudia, an approach that worked with Schwartz, an approach that worked with Fermin, like all the, four incredibly disparate personalities with very different points of motivation and different end goals.
For sure.
And what's great is that we're all still friends. That's what's like so special about it, And I think it all comes down to just nectarines.
Nectarines, compressed nectarines, seared, compressed and seared, or seared, just seared. No, they were like compressed and seared.
They were compressed and seared. Although I'm trying to remember if we did sear, compress, sear.
I think we might have sear, compressed, sear.
I think we did sear,
like syrup hold.
Yeah. It's a syrup.
It was compressed in syrup and then held in syrup, but in between it was compressed.
Yeah, and the sear
and then seared
spoke to the syrup.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It was good. But did it have chanterelles on it too?
It has chanterelles. It had like.
Is there like a muesli?
Totally, there is a muesli.
There's like a muesli on it. This is one of those moments I want to look at.
Is there a muesli on that dish?
Is there a muesli?
What, was it breakfast food? Was it a fruit salad? Chef to fruit salad.
Did we ever get the fruit salad going? No. No, we had the kale smoothie.
The kale smoothie dessert. Remember when we just bought all that clay and put foie gras in it? We just thought that aging stuff in clay was a thing.
I didn't until now, but that makes complete sense. Like Zach was just like, we just gave him carte blanche.
Tell us these things. There's no scientific proof that this is actually going to work. This makes zero sense.
100 pounds of lye water, calcium hydroxide.
Yeah, you're like, why does this taste like lye? Maybe because it has a lot of lye in it.
Do you remember when and I always bring this up with him, but he had me, he made me make shiso juice and mixed it into a rainfall of liquid nitrogen because we were trying to make snow.
No. How did I miss this?
I don't know. I was there 3 a.m. some nights, pouring liquid nitrogen, playing God, creating precipitation onto a panna cotta. Like a shiso granita onto a panna cotta, but gentle snowfall. But it never worked, and that haunts me.
Maybe you should come back to it.
One day I will, but I have I just don't think I was equipped for it yet.
Yeah.
Now I think I am.
Yeah, God.
How can I masa that though? How can I do that with masa?
Like the guy or the food?
Masazumi. Which masa though,
Totally.
Yeah, different masas.
Saya or Zumi?
Masazumi Sayo. It was Masatomo.
Masatomo.
Masatomo,
right. Yeah.
Masazumi Sayo.
Yeah.
Is one and the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool. So, since then, you've opened Old Thousand. You have, and then so just walk us through the kind of Uchi to Uchiko. Kind of give us the hits real quick.
Uchi to Uchiko and beyond.
Yeah,
or?
exactly.
Yeah. So Uchiko, then we opened Old Thousand, and then I opened Loro because I didn't get enough out of that first opening. Like it wasn't, life ruining enough. Like
you didn't get enough out of R&Ding the Loro menu for 4 years before.
No,
you had to come back and open it. I mean, honestly, I get it.
I had to finish what I started. I had to get another open under my belt. Opening Old Thousand made me realize how little I actually knew, and I think
Totally.
the opportunity to open another restaurant, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do what I did with this restaurant. I loved Old Thousand. I loved the crew there, and a lot of them are still there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going to take the lessons that I learned and immediately turn them over and open again and just crush this.
Yeah.
And I just got annihilated by that opening. It was one of the hardest.
I mean, I think that the whole concept was unprepared for what the concept was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
To be fair to myself, for sure. I don't think anybody really knew what it was going to be.
Exactly.
Myself included, yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, there's this thing of all right, we're gonna do this barbecue thing. And that's Aaron's ballpark, but this volume Asian cooking, which is Uchi ballpark, but there had to be this skill set that met in the middle, and probably both parties were like, you got that, right?
Yeah.
And then nobody had that.
Yeah. Nobody had exactly that.
Yeah.
It would have been cool to learn grow to that, but not when you're doing I just realized for sure that I'm not trying to do 1500 cover.
Yeah, it's not your game.
Yeah, that's not what I want out of life.
Yeah. No, that was very quickly the Swedish Hill experience with me too. Our first Saturday we did almost 2,000 covers.
That's nuts.
And it was just and granted some of those covers are just a croissant or a cookie or
sure.
Whatever, but the cumulative toll of hearing that thing ordered and also just the million things that are a lot more than that too. It's the volume game is taxing if it's not your passion.
Yeah, it becomes a little joyless.
If you don't really get off let's see how many people we can do today. There are those chefs that are genuinely inspired by that. By just pushing volume. And if that's not your point of inspiration or something that you're super into, it's exhausting.
Yeah,
it's super exhausting.
Totally. And I learned. It was really cool working with Aaron Franklin for sure. I mean, I learned.
He's such a nice guy.
In the small amount of time we worked together, I definitely learned a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a project that I'm going to probably be picking your brain on in that regard.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll talk about it off camera.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there a camera there?
Forgot about the camera.
Yeah. So that's cool. So I want to. I mean, something that I think we have. We've been a part of each other's lives for a long time, and we've seen each other. Go through ups and downs personally and professionally. Mm-hmm. What was your personal life like through that whole walk? Because I think you're someone who I think, for the longest time, maintained this kind of austere impression of this seamless and unfettered kind of personal life.
Yeah.
And I'm curious as to how accurate that impression is versus reality.
I think that whatever I had going on in my life, it was secondary to what I was doing in my career. Uh-huh. And I think that ended up becoming a real problem after a while.
As it does.
For sure, yeah. I was lucky to have Amanda be my partner for sure, because nobody could understand more.
Relate more, yeah.
And I think, for the beginning of our careers, we wouldn't have gotten to the heights that we got without each other for sure. I think we both definitely feel that way about it. Just being able to be away from home 17 hours a day and no questions how was work? Cool. All right, I'll talk to you on Monday.
In 4 days.
or whatever.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, and that's a rare thing. I don't think people who don't work in the industry really understand what it's like to commit yourself.
There are certain trade-offs that when you put so much energy into one thing, so many other things, it's not that they suffer, it's just that they're not possible.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so there are inherent trade-offs to that, and a lot of those trade-offs are things that traditional relationships are fueled by.
For sure, yeah.
You know? I mean, I can speak from my own experience. You know, the things that suffer when I work a lot is, you know, like things that don't happen. I'm emotionally unavailable.
Yeah.
I'm largely sexually unavailable.
Yeah.
Because you're like, cool, I'm just tired.
Yeah.
You know, and I just want a minute to like eat 3 spoonfuls of peanut butter,
yeah.
watch half an episode of The Watchmen,
yeah.
and go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah.
You know? Because you're going to wake up and do it all again. Again
yeah.
and again and again and again and again, you know? And then like those times of like, you know, okay, cool, we have a day together. You just want to feel like human beings.
Yeah.
You know, so like maybe sleep in, catch up on your sleep, and like go do something, anything, get some sunshine on your skin, whatever,
yeah.
you know, just like feel like a moment of your life isn't dedicated to your work.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Which is hard to make space for another person within that want, right?
That's exactly what I was thinking as you're saying that. Because especially it's like for that relationship, we got together when we were very young, so like there was still so much growth to do personally.
You still may be anywhere between the ages of 19 and 39. I'm
right. Yeah, and you'll never know.
I literally will never know. And then one day you'll look 105.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I'll die like
shortly thereafter. Yeah.
Shortly thereafter.
You'll be 135.
I'll be 135 or 36. Yeah, but then you feel guilty, you know, like you're like, all right, well today I'm gonna, you know, go hang out with my friends, or I'm gonna just chill at home, or I'm gonna do this, like work on this project, and like that's like a day you have with your significant other, and you're just like, man, like I really just need this like space or whatever. Yeah. But then it's like, how do I ask selfish? For that? Yeah. Am I being selfish right now? Yeah. And at times the other person is like, yeah, you are being selfish, and you know, and it goes back and forth, but it's just tough. It's tough balancing hard, that. Yeah. And it took me, I think, after Loro, just realizing that I had to reevaluate like my priorities and could fit my career into my life without letting it destroy me. And I think part of me pouring myself into my career, like I definitely like lost the sense of like myself as myself and became like a lesser partner. In that regard as well, because I was offering much less to the relationship just because I was like a shell of
because you didn't make time for yourself.
No,
you know, and
I'll be at home like on a day off and just be like, can you believe like, you know, like we're not moving this special or whatever, and it's just like stop cares. Like let's just like enjoy the day or whatever, you know. But it's really easy to become obsessive. But I think after that I definitely delved into a period of just changing the way I lived and the way I treated myself, just like my own mental health, my physical health, and making sure that I made the adequate amount of space for that, no matter what. Like making sure that I'm doing things that benefit me, and like getting rid of the things that don't serve me. Yeah. Like cutting that, like valuing my time and making sure that all my hours are spent investing, you know, time towards myself and figuring out how to be happy.
That's fucking great to hear. I love that.
No, yeah. I mean, it's still a struggle, you know.
Of course it is.
But and it's important, and it's something that I espouse to like anybody that will listen. Especially being at Suerte, it's great because it's an environment where people encourage you to delve into your own well-being and health, and like they work with capital area counseling on the Mike and Sherry project. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but like
Fareen was telling me about it.
Yeah, I mean that's an incredible thing to me. I've never worked with a group that, you know, put aside the idea that there's like a stigma to like needing like help balancing, you know, your like the idea of like mental illness is
totally
and anxiety, and like there's so many things under that umbrella, you know, and like it's easy for anybody to feel like if I'm seeing a counselor that makes me, you know, deficient in some way. Sure. But I think that anybody can like benefit from that, especially in our industry. For
just talking to a professional, right?
Yeah.
Just like being like, I have like these things that like I have thoughts about.
For sure.
Can you help me process them?
Even if only for all the reasons that we just discussed just now. There's a ton of like, you know, addiction in the industry. There's anxiety. There's depression.
I mean, I think we generally are a group of people just by the nature of people that tend to stick to this and thrive in it have a degree of chemical imbalance.
In a manner of speaking,
That is just kind of part of the game,
For sure.
know? And like that can take a lot of different forms and be from mild to severe, right?
Yeah.
Like that's not a blanket statement by any means,
No.
but I think like as opposed to what I mean would be considered like regular or normal, there's not a lot of that.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's weird because in a lot of ways it makes for some of the best shows I've ever.
Couldn't agree.
You know,
like 100%, man.
Like I mean, a better word for it. Yeah.
It's really interesting, you know, when I kind of decided to I guess reprogram my life in a similar way. You know, it's really hard at first because I had so much of my identity and my personal like self-worth tied up in a restaurant and in my ability to exist in that physical space and impact that physical space. And so I think, you know, the hard part for me was like really extricating those two things from one another and like understanding that like here are the things that I actually value that actually are tangible, real things in my life that I'm going to value for the next 20 to 40 years, right? You know, which is being a parent, you know, I mean, interpersonal relationships, you know, I mean, we're at the age where our parents certainly aren't getting any younger,
right?
You know, and so those things, you know, provide perspective. You know, we're in, like, I find myself at this point of like, okay, my son needs me now. You know, it's not an option anymore. It's not like, oh, he'll need me when he's older. He's only 2, you know, or 1, or he's a baby, you know. Yeah. It's like, no, like, that's not negotiable anymore. You know, no job will ever be more important than that.
Is that like scary for you or exciting or both?
It's both, but it's amazing. You know, like it's actually it's beautiful because it's just clear. Yeah. You know, there's no amount of things that are like. I mean that's why I love doing this so much, the Foxtail thing, because I get to do it with him. Yeah. You know, like on Friday nights he's here and he just like he'll play over here and he'll come and he'll like help cook stuff and he'll eat stuff and just like hang out and like it's great. You know, and like. You know, and like from a guest perspective, it's like cool. There's like a cute little kid eating fucking Wagyu carpaccio, like fucking whatever. You know,
it's probably gonna read differently in like 3 months when he's like 6'3".
It's a really old
dunking
kid.
On.
Yeah. Also that kid, not great speech development for a 16-year-old.
Just like doing
totally.
bicep curls over here.
Totally. Yeah. But that balance is really hard, man. I mean, going back to you and Amanda, if you don't mind. You guys were together for 7 years?
No, we were together for 10, like,
oh my
10
God.
years. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. Basically, from culinary school onward.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that has to have been a very difficult, I would imagine after 10 years, once you decide to part ways, it's probably a pretty mutual thing.
Yeah. It
was probably pretty measured, I would imagine.
Yeah, and it was never, like, I've never experienced, like, a more mature,
like,
uncoupling, than that. And
very mature term, by the way, also.
Conscious uncoupling, Gwyneth Paltrow. No. Have you ever heard of Gwyneth Paltrow? Gwyneth Paltrow?
Yeah, I've seen her head in a box before.
Right, Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
Segue to the relationship.
What's in the box?
Classic kitchen, what's in the box.
Yeah, totally.
No, yeah, I mean, like, she's still my best friend. And
that's fucking rad, dude.
Yeah, and we always will be, like, we'll just always be best friends.
Yeah.
Whatever happens down the road. But I think that you're with somebody for long enough and, like, if you need space to develop individually, then so be it. I think that we both got into a space where we were so reliant on each other and we were beginning to define each other as like I felt like I couldn't have James without Amanda, and I think in some ways she, like, everybody would associate us, especially when you're in like a circle like we're in. It's kind of like you're just
one thing.
You're just like a portmanteau of like two people.
Nice.
Portmanteau.
Yeah.
Of two, and like I think that's. I can't really, like, I'm still kind of digesting it, especially because it happened, like, right before coronavirus descended upon the planet Earth.
Yeah.
So it's been a crazy couple months.
Yeah.
I've been talking to a lot of people who are going through a similar thing. For some reason, like, a lot of my friends have gone through, like, gotten out of long-term relationships. Yeah.
2020, man.
Yeah, 2020.
Yeah.
Freaking cicadas and,
Yeah. Weird viruses.
Cicada boy?
Yes.
Some of that just came out like cicada boy.
No, I got it.
That's not going to make it. It's not going to make it to the final cut.
Cutting room floor.
But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm doing a lot of growing up this year. Yeah. every day, every single day.
Good.
Yeah.
That's. Do you feel it's the right amount of uncomfortable?
Yeah. I actually that's part of why I've gotten into like running a ton. Because I think in high school I like did like short distances and whatever, but I think that it was because long distance running was just so physically taxing and uncomfortable.
Sure.
I didn't enjoy it.
Yeah.
But I think for whatever reason now is the right time in my life for me.
You have the
to,
mindset for it.
Yeah. Like I want
the cook mindset is that mindset. It's the same thing.
And I think like cooking this long, I like realized that it was just a natural fit for my life.
Yeah.
Like getting out there, even just making the decision to do it for yourself and like not quitting, like, whenever you reach your threshold, seeing how much further you can go. Like those are things that are already like ingrained in me. And I think it took me a long time to realize that I had that in me. And now I'm just like developing this like
That's
real
rad, dude.
like love of that for the moment. Yeah.
Cool. What has been the biggest surprise, let's say both good and bad, about like newly found singlehood after a long-term relationship?
I think just what I'm able to do, like when I commit myself to just being myself. And that's not a knock on like I think the best thing that ever happened to me was like being in this long-term relationship and like and everything we did together. Yeah, it's definitely like changed me for the better. Like just it's made me a different person in the best ways possible. But the time that I'm able to commit to like things like writing and like things that I've always like wanted to do.
Slam poetry,
just freestyle rap.
Totally.
Just like we were talking about before, like you tend to feel guilty if you're like in a relationship and you're like working so much, like there's only so much you can do. And I don't have that anymore.
Yeah.
Like so I could do things just because I want to do them. And
yeah, I mean I completely relate. And I think that like that fundamental thing that you described has actually made me a significantly better parent, which is, again, it gets back to when you are able to fill up your cup, you have more water for everybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure, yeah.
If you're constantly just fucking running on empty, then you're giving everybody that.
No. And I think that kind of segues to the other thing that surprises me about singlehood is that it's actually like been great becoming friends with Amanda again, like just like hanging out with each other,
Totally.
Hopefully she feels the same, but just really like I'll see her and I'll be like, it's still on. This is on, right?
It's on, right?
We have to do this again. It's on. Just hanging out with her is like fun, like so much fun, It's like
you discover that. God, that's so true, man. I mean, it took Velvet and I a lot longer for obvious reasons.
I mean, there's a lot.
But we have gotten to a very similar place where like when we hang out, it's like fun and like we fucking bust each other's balls and like it's like it's like it was like 10 years ago.
It's like there's a reason that you want
totally
to spend
right,
time with
and
this
like
person,
all that stuff was still there.
Yeah,
it's just that you I mean, it's at whatever rate works for. I mean, the context of that relationship, you work through the rest of it, and you get back to the good stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I remember the first time we hung out, like really hung out after we broke up. I really like told her I was like I felt like really enriched by like saying, it's like you're like it's just like you satisfy like a like legitimate need just to be with your friend. You know what I mean? And that I think has been like a real shock to me. I've never had that be the case.
That's really cool.
That's
really fucking cool, man.
Yeah.
Awesome. So how has I wanna because I think we've had this like really kind of unprecedented doesn't do it justice. But just kind of this kind of like one after another kind of unique experience both personally and broadly, right? Mm-hmm. As we feel something. As we feel something within ourselves, and then as it affects the entire world, right? Mm-hmm. This kind of string of events that the past few months have been. How has Corona affected you on a professional and on an emotional level, and how those two things kind of interacted with one another?
Man, it's been like a roller coaster ride for sure. I mean, I'm sure everybody feels the same way, but uniquely in the restaurant industry, just very hard decisions to make. Trying to figure out, the best thing to do for your. We spent hours of those first weeks just talking about what the best thing to do for our staff was. Like days and days of like contemplating things, like we're in the war room, like the times were like ticking, like so we furloughed everybody almost like very early. Sam made the decision to like get their process started. We kind of like consulted with a bunch of like our lawyers and everything.
And they're like, this is the safest thing.
Right.
Yeah. Which it turned out it was. Yeah.
Right. And then like that was their best chance of like getting unemployment, so on and so forth. We decided to feed them. So it was like we're opening and lifting like this kind of like creating a new restaurant then. And since then I feel like we've just continued to roll with all the punches, and like it's almost like we're opening a restaurant like every few weeks.
Yeah.
So it's been like mentally taxing, honestly, and like like physically, mentally taxing, exhausting. There's been like truly beautiful moments. Like there's times in the beginning and in the middle when it was just like the management group in the building just pulling it together, and everybody, you look around and everybody is just like badass, but like exhausted, but everybody's like, you're like, I trust this person with my life. Like
that's dope, man.
I trust this person with my life.
Those moments are incredible.
Yeah. But then at the same time, it's like you're cooking, especially now we're letting people into our house again. It's like there's always like this nagging thing. Like, am I doing the best thing for this guest? Like, how do I taste this food safely? Like, how do I?
Totally.
Yeah. So I'm like ladling cups of salsas and like putting them in the back.
Yeah.
And like doing like 3 sauces at a time. Yeah. Then like ladling the sauces and like putting them over here, tasting them and like adjusting and like thinking about things in terms of percentages and, instead
1.5% salt.
Yeah. Like this is like 1.5. This needs 2% salt. This needs 1.5% salt. Like that is this much. And like trying to translate that information to like somebody else. Like, like it's going to be like half a cup of whatever, or like yada, yada, yada. And like doing like
a lot of yada, yada, yada.
A lot of yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Like, and then even just like initially doing the to-go stuff, like I don't know how to make 500 pounds of fideo. Like I don't. Yeah. Now I do. Now I definitely do.
God bless.
But man,
The to-go stuff is, I think what's so interesting about that is, here's what it showed me as, a relative outsider in the sense that, like, I was not running and operating a restaurant at the time, right? Which I'm super fucking grateful for, by the way. Is that the inherent value of a business to be able to service its neighborhood with both takeout and dine-in on some level, I think will be irrevocably changed from this process.
100%.
That thing, of just like, because I think whatever the new normal is, people have gotten used to actually better takeout.
Yeah.
And there will be a fundamental consumer expectation now that like there is some level of availability there.
Definitely.
And I think restaurants, smartly so for a long time, will maintain that as a revenue stream.
Yeah, and I think that we're not doing away with it anytime soon.
Yeah.
And it's
also tacos.
And tacos.
Yeah.
And people are really, we were really lucky, and people were really receptive to everything. Yeah. And it's like you kind of just have to take it day by day. It's like, is this the right thing? And then people come and they're like, this is what they want, and like this is the way we introduce normalcy into people's lives in a way. It's like, and that's like I've reframed my idea of like how food can be important to people.
Right?
Like it's easy for us to be like, it's just but like
the concept of comfort.
Yeah. At a time like this, like it's not to like
a lot deeper.
Inflate like what we do or whatever, but it's like I've definitely like watched people just like flock in because they just need that feeling of like normalcy and like the feeling that they can enjoy like Suerte tacos like they did before and ignore their situation for like an hour with their kids, and then there's the element of like being able to play with that food at home, like that's just really cool,
Totally.
And something we wouldn't have done if this didn't happen. I don't think.
Cool.
Yeah.
So I think the next thing I want to touch on is, we have, and then as soon as there seemed to be clarity with COVID, the spotlight, rightly got shined on the fact that we live in a, horrifically racist country.
Right.
And what's really, I'm not going to sit here and like pat myself on the back and like, freaking bang on the drum, but that's something I've been saying for a long time.
Sure.
And it's something I think what it reminded me of very poignantly is that I can have that opinion, you know, but if I don't stand up and argue it every time that it's not understood, then I'm not helping anybody,
right?
You know, and that's something that, you know, I looked back at my past and a lot of interpersonal relationships that I've had, you know, just kind of, you know, whether it's been, you know, an ex or a roommate or a friend, you know, in a situation, just those little things that we haven't been careful of, you know, and have attributed to tasteless humor, or this, that, or the other, you know, and I think I'm really hopeful and glad that I really want that stuff to die.
Yeah.
You know, I think that all of this has put that in at least a lot of perspective for me, as far as the things that we can tangibly do to help impact a better situation for those that are less fortunate than us. You know, and it's something that, you know, I've, you know, in starting a business as a white male, you know, realizing your position in that, and realizing, I think the thing that rings true to me the most is that, for better or for worse, there is this subconscious thing that people have where it's like they see a white male and they believe in you more. And it's like fucking gross, and it's weird, and it's uncomfortable, and it is an opportunity to create opportunity for others. Yeah. You know, and that to me has been like the wake up call, right? Yeah. And to say, okay, cool. In building more food and beverage businesses, guess what I'm not going to do? Fill the room with a bunch of people that look like me all over again, because I've been too guilty of that in the past. You know, what are your thoughts there?
That's a lot.
Well, I know, but I mean, I feel like I'm not. I mean, you know, and again, I don't have all the answers, right? Like that's what I know today, right? You know, and I'm not going to sit here and say like I'm listening, like I'm open minded, you know, like I know what I know today. I'm super fucking grateful for the upbringing that I had. For the cultures I got exposed to, frankly, for basketball, you know, because if it wasn't for that fucking sport and the black culture that it brought into my life, the whitewashed existence that I would have lived otherwise would have been a very different life and maybe a very different person, right? You know, and so, you know, I am, you know, of all the things that basketball has provided me, and it has saved my life so many times, you know, the cultural perspective it's provided me, and the connection it's provided me, and the ability to, you know, to interact in environments that I wouldn't otherwise find myself in, has been fucking incredible, you know. And I was having this conversation the other day with someone, and they pointed out something, because I go on the basketball court and I don't see color, right? It's like it's like we're all equal. Whoever has a good jump shot has a good jump shot. Whoever doesn't, right? You know, and like whatever is in between. But something that that was pointed out to me, I was like, guess what? You can do that way because you're white, and you get to walk off the basketball court white. Yeah. You know.
Who pointed that out to you?
Actually, a white girl.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like, fuck.
I thought you were going to say, like, Dwayne Wade.
No. No, it's like, that shit's heavy, you know?
Yeah, that is heavy.
And it gave me an appreciation for the acceptance that I got, you know? I mean, when I used to go to the YMCA in the worst fucking neighborhood in Charlottesville, you know? I mean, like, I'd get fucking roughed up a little bit, but, like, you fucking earn your stripes, and you're just another fucking player out there, you know? Yeah. And, like, the level of acceptance you can earn on a basketball court, you know, was, I mean, it is something that I will be forever fucking grateful for.
Yeah, I mean, I had a similar upbringing to, like, that way. I think this whole thing is just, like, for me, has illuminated the need to have, like, difficult conversations, I think.
Totally.
And not with, like, people that get it either. Like, with the people that don't get it, like your aunt or whatever.
Totally.
Or, like, you know, or, like...
100%.
Yeah, and I think that is all that... Like, there's so much that to unpack, but, like, that is all... I am definitely, like, focusing on that. Like, if I see... Even if it's, like, a Facebook thing that somebody's aunt posts that might be, like... just like a little bit misled and misguided, like I think it's... You
engage in the conversation.
Yeah, because that's what you do, for both for the culture and for like that person and for your relationship with that person. Like it's a necessary thing, and I don't think...
It's that personal accountability that I think we've all done a poor job of, you know?
Yeah, I definitely haven't done that in the past. I'm not a person who likes to create like tension and feelings of discomfort. But it's clear that those things need to happen because not everybody has the experience like it's easy to take for granted the amount of exposure, your personal perspectives on anything really. Like you don't know what the next man, if the next man sees like the way you see your friend the same way. Like one of my best friends of my whole life was black, and I just actually on Facebook the other day read like this post that somebody was posting something completely unrelated to all this, and this kid was like, that like my friend was put on the basketball team because he was black, not because he was like a better basketball player.
Yeah.
And that's just been like eating me up because I know I'm gonna have to light this dude up
Yeah.
like today.
Yeah.
But I'm like, fuck, like
Send me a screenshot of it.
I will.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But it's like, first of all, like that was 20 years ago. Like,
Yeah.
second of all, like, why are you doing this now? And like,
Yeah, like even if you have that really dumb thought,
yeah,
read the room.
yeah. Like, let's not.
Read the fucking room.
That's not. That's not
man.
true too. I like this dude was like just like a jump shooter.
Yeah.
My friend was like sick. He was like, he wasn't like a greatly coordinated person.
Yeah.
He'll be the first to say, but like he was like super athletic. Like, like rebounder, boxed out, very strong dude.
Yeah.
So it was just like out of left field. But even these small slights now seem like much larger because I feel like they belie like just real feelings of, even if it's not like
Of a cultural resentment.
even if it's not out and out racism, it's resentment, right?
Yeah,
because like if
totally.
you're gonna go there, like immediately you're gonna go there. It's like,
Well,
come on, man.
Well, and the point to that is like, okay, like cool. So like, even if you're not saying he made the team because he's black, you're saying he made the team because he's black, right? And like, what the fuck does that mean?
right?
You know?
Yeah.
So you're saying like the coach was like, he's black?
Yeah,
Like, no. He was a better rebounder. He was bigger.
Yeah.
Those are tangible basketball
yeah.
assets.
And we were 14, and he saw like some
And he was like,
athletic
hey, a big
potential.
guy. Yeah, like,
yeah,
like fucking
a dude,
idiot.
like a very athletic dude. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like, fuck,
Basketball, man. You know,
Fucking
nothing is out of
basketball.
bounds. Right,
Oh.
real sports.
Real fucking
Brian
sports. So I was listening to Dave Chang's podcast recently. He did a really interesting one. Do you listen to it at all?
I haven't in a while, but I did like pretty religiously at first. Yeah.
I would say it was the opposite. It took me
Took
2
you a
years
little
to
more
not be
time.
annoyed by his voice, and now I actually really enjoy his podcast.
Yeah.
And also now I'm like sympathetic to the new podcaster, given it's like they're going through the first couple of podcasts I did. It sounded like I was doing meth and sucking helium balloons at the same time. It was rough.
It's cool. It's like its own genre, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody's out there is into that. Just lean into that. I don't think anybody's doing that right now. Yeah.
So he brought up a really interesting concept, and I would be curious to get your perspective on it. His specific context of the Black Lives Matter movement in the Korean community, right? And the Korean American community, where he has himself encountered a lot of racism and a lot of like generational racism,
Right.
Especially like being in LA now, and like like the history that's like tied back to like the '92 riots and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and like and like and that and there is like a lineage of that around the country that apparently I'm not Asian, I can't speak to these things, but apparently is very real. Is that something you've experienced?
It's not something I've experienced, definitely not. And I remember I was pretty young when that happened, but definitely there was like a thick tension for reasons I'm not going to get into because I don't even understand.
Yeah.
But for me, no, I've been lucky. And honestly, I grew up in the kind of like a bubble, but I went to college at, I guess, like what is just like probably like a 40% African American. Like I went to a school that was like incredibly diverse. And that time in my life definitely like opened my eyes to, and I mean I should mention that Amanda is African American as well.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, I was in a relationship.
No
for
one's
10
sitting
years.
here calling you racist, James.
Yeah, so just for the record.
Yeah. Also, I dated a black girl doesn't mean you're not racist.
Right, my best friend.
Right, and
I said my best
my
friend.
father's gay.
Yeah. No, I mean, no,
Yeah.
I just that definitely didn't factor into my life at all. And I think honestly there was a time when all this was going down, and maybe even before growing up, I just like really didn't understand. I'm like, like I remember Amadou Diallo happening, being like, what? Like, that's a thing? Like, really?
I know, dude.
Like, people are like that. Like there's that much fear and hate. Like, I didn't. Like, I was lucky to not grow up in a city that it was just a kind of an idyllic situation, honestly. Like, I I never felt
that wasn't part of your reality.
That wasn't a part of my reality at all.
Yeah.
And it continued to be less and less so.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I mean New Jersey gets a bad rap, but especially where I grew up in New Jersey.
Which is where?
Well, I grew up in a town called Millburn, and but I went to college at a town called Newark, which is just outside of New York. So I mean, I just was
underrated airport.
Very terrible airport. I think
overrated
it's better
airport.
Overrated,
properly rated airport.
Properly, it's spot on.
Yeah,
spot on. JFK, LaGuardia, and Newark. But yeah, I always felt a kinship with everybody. Like, because growing up, you know, you're friends with everybody. You're friends with an Indian, like the Indian kid that lives down the street.
Totally.
Like, you have friends that are Jewish. You have friends that are Italian. And I didn't realize like how different it was in Jersey until
Jersey is a melting pot that way.
It is,
and like in the way that New York used to be.
Right.
Right. You know, I mean, New York is so segregated by socioeconomic.
Yeah.
I mean, reasons now that like if you live, you know, in Manhattan.
Yeah.
It's like.
But yeah, when I moved to Austin.
So what's it like to be a millionaire?
Like moving to Austin's like you can't.
That's an exaggeration.
Like you have to go like 45 minutes up north to like get like.
Dude, right.
Get like Chinese food or Indian food or whatever.
Austin
like
is so painfully white.
It really is.
It is like, I mean, I didn't realize it at first because I moved here from Santa Fe.
Yeah.
What's
What's Santa Fe like?
Painfully white.
Yeah.
And then like there's the Latino side of town.
Right.
But I mean, it's very, very white. And then, you know, I had previously, you know, I was born in Atlanta. My whole family's Southern, and so like when I would go back to the South, it was like being in the South. You know, it was like, you know, very white and black, right?
Yeah.
You know, and then when I lived, you know, in New York, and I mean, obviously that was a super culturally diverse experience. I mean, my parents raised me to never care about that stuff. You know, interestingly enough, you know, my grandparents on one side were, you know, a little bit more, I think, racially progressive than you know, my more Southern grandparents.
Sure.
You know, and so that was an experience that I came up with and like was conscious of. You know,
Yeah.
I heard people that I was related to like being verbally racist when I was, you know, a young child. And immediately then I got like knots in my stomach and it was like super uncomfortable. And it was like, ooh, like that's ugly. You know, like but I was like 8.
Yeah.
You know, like what do you say? You know, I mean, I don't know. I'm not gonna sit here and make excuses for it. You know, I don't know, but it's something that, you know, I definitely saw both sides of it, and I see how we've gotten to where we are.
Yeah.
Which is to say, a culture of complacency and a culture of unwillingness to have hard conversations and to have conflict and to feel uncomfortable. That to me is the ultimate problem, because I think the fundamental sentence like Black Lives Matter, the fact that sentence makes so many people uncomfortable when you ask them, well, do they? And they say, well, yeah, of course they do. Then why is it so hard to say that,
it's
right?
so cringy when people are like, all lives matter. It
I know.
Like, makes me cringe.
I know.
It's, yeah, and maybe like, I think uniquely like, since my parents are first generation immigrants, like I think I just like knew, they kind of were their struggle, and it was like, it's like, I hear these stories, but it's kind of like, yeah, that happened, it just is how it is, you know, like my dad like worked for a very large engineering firm when he got here, and like the bank would be like, we don't cash Chinese checks. Be like, this check literally came from like this very large engineering firm that's like on this block, like in New Jersey, like
and all the
in a
letters
large
are in
city.
English.
Yeah, this whole thing, you know. But I feel like there wasn't as much fight. Like they kind of accepted it. Like
well, I think so something that Dave Chang talked about is the Asian American assimilation to white culture.
Yeah.
Through the context of not ruffling feathers.
Yeah.
That's
very...
And that's a really good example of that.
I think about that often.
You know?
Yeah.
Because you don't have the same... There is a visual distinction, of course, right?
Yeah.
But it's less severe, you know? And, you know, and there is that like cultural assimilation, which like for whatever reason has happened largely, you know? Like that's real, you know? If you were to say, you know, like what culture has been most assimilated, I would say would probably be that one, you know?
Yeah.
You know, if, I mean, granted, those are, you know, kind of sweeping generalizations.
Yeah, like a multitude of,
Yeah, but I mean...
But I would say in many Asian cultures, there's a sense that you don't, you're kind of demure and you're kind of like extra respectful of not invading somebody's space and not creating tension or
not engaging
just
in
like
conflict in a way that because it's counterproductive.
Yeah,
right. And that is what's funny is that is inherently true, right? Conversely, I think we're at a point where it can no longer be true.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, I think especially in this country, and I think if it were happening to my parents now, they'd probably feel very differently about it. But I think at that time they were just trying to get by.
How have your parents spoken about what's going on right now? How has that been?
I haven't sat down and talked to them about it, honestly, which is crazy because there's so much going on there. They both had coronavirus.
I know, that's fucking nuts, dude.
So intense.
I mean, fucking knock on wood, everything's good.
Yeah, I mean, and my mom, they were pretty matter of fact about it. I mean, my mom has been a nurse for so many years. She's seen it all.
She was like, "This is probably."
She was kind of like, "Hey, yeah, I've coronavirus." My dad sent me 2 texts. Like he doubled up on the text. Like he's been out of text all the time. And he was like, "I just found out I have coronavirus," and it was just like, "I just found out I have coronavirus." I was like, so I'm like, Jesus, fuck.
Were they asymptomatic? Was it?
They were full on
They had the fever.
They sequestered themselves for a month.
Wow, that's heavy.
Yeah, but luckily they were my family is heavily involved in the medical industry, so luckily they had access to some good medicine. My uncle, who's a doctor, took care of them and guided them in the right direction of everything, and luckily they're feeling good. But yeah, I haven't. I guess all the conversations have been thank God you don't have coronavirus right now. Maybe now it's time. I should hit them up and be like, all right, let's talk about what really matters. All right, I'm glad you got past this hurdle, but let's
address
freaking
there are other things going on in the world
right?
now. Yeah. Well,
So turn off the TV and sit here.
What's been really interesting for me is I don't really talk to my dad that much, and so now my dad's always been very liberal and and I would say he unequivocally brought more black people into my life than anybody.
Wow.
But I've been thinking do I have to have this conversation? You know, he's was born in 1949 in Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
It'd
be interesting to hear his perspective on how he
he's always been on the most leftist side of all of it, right? But I think that when you're a certain age and from a certain place, there is an inherent you are steeped in a certain amount of your own history, and so I mean, I would be curious to know his perspective on
It's crazy. Think about 1949, that is not 100 years removed from the Civil War.
Dude, right?
Actually, that's what I'm partially what I'm writing about is just
the Civil War.
No, it's about the first
Civil War
documented serial killer in America,
which is
I'll get to that.
Great.
But what happened as a result of this of this string of killings was racial. There's a huge amount of racial tension in a southern town that happened to be fairly liberal, actually, and kind of well acclimated. The race relations were as good as it could be expected for 1885 or whatever. But this eventually kind of engendered a manhunt for any black man.
Yeah.
There were lynchings. It was just this really, really heinous kind of year. And they never figured out exactly who it is, but one of the reasons it interested me, this story, is because 2 of the main suspects are cooks. So I was okay, interesting, because the dude they figured was a male would butcher primarily women of a certain class. Initially, women of color and women who were servants. The other reason it interested me was because they never figured out who this person was specifically. And then the third reason was because it happened here in Austin.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And a lot of it happened on Congress, honestly.
Wow.
Yeah. So researching that.
I'm super interested in this.
Researching that is really, and there's more to it that I won't 100% get into just because like I don't want to ruin the
Yeah,
surprise.
spoiler alert, I get it.
But like honestly, there's like some apocryphal kind of history that like the moon towers are here because the city wanted to prevent another thing like this happening. Like they
Oh, interesting.
yeah, because electricity was harder to come by.
Sure.
But that kind of derailed what was like a burgeoning the health of like the African American population of Austin. Because initially, Alicia Peace, who was the governor, early like Peace Park, he was actually like a unionist, and I believe an abolitionist. And like Clarksville, he that exists as a free, like that was initially a freedmen colony, like a settlement
the
for freedmen.
irony of that.
Alicia
oh my
Peace.
fucking god! Are
sold,
you kidding me?
He sold Clarksville,
and now it's
to,
the whitest part of Austin.
Another thing I'm finding out is
Jesus.
Wheatville was another settlement, and now it's like one of the whitest. Friggin' like Wheatsville comes from Wheatville, and
The cultural
there was
appropriation
Masonville.
here is fucking.
So there are these 3 settlements, and they're like there's like Masonville was the last, or Masontown, they're interchangeable, was the last settlement. I think well that's as far as my research has gotten me.
Yeah.
In my writing, but that is E. Cesar Chavez now.
Wow, God.
So
That's really heavy.
yeah,
That's really heavy.
yeah, and the more I delve into this, the more like I'm about to go to like the library and like go to like those like weird newspaper machines and just like
Can I tag along?
yeah, just like figure out who this dude was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's crazy just in our own city, like
That's
looking
really
around.
cool you're telling that story, man.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's how I'm responding to all of it. I don't know. But like I don't know why I'm doing like writing this right now, maybe because I just like have this like flurry of energy in my body, but like it's a story that I've followed for a few years.
Yeah.
But one I think has like that's like really trenchant for a lot of reasons, and that's one of them for sure.
Cool.
Wow. And you follow the history of this city, and yeah, like it's almost like all these places have been eradicated, and the foothold is gone, and it happened like yes over time, but also in the blink of an eye, you know.
Happy.
Yeah.
That's really cool, man. Wow. Well, I love the way that conversation went.